I stepped into the huge hall of the international airport. The ceiling was so high that it looked like a silver sky. My blue t-shirt felt comfortable despite the cool air conditioning. I checked the giant monitor to find my flight number. My heart jumped when I saw the word "on time" in green. I walked toward the check-in area with my heavy suitcase. The floor was so shiny that I could see my own reflection. I saw a line of desks with friendly people in blue uniforms. A woman named Clara waved me toward her station on the left. "Good morning. Where are you flying today?" she asked with a smile. I told her I was heading to a sunny island for my vacation. I handed her my passport and my digital booking confirmation. Clara typed something quickly on her bright computer keyboard. She had a very professional way of handling the documents. I wondered if she saw thousands of travelers every single day. "I need to put your suitcase on the scale," she said. I lifted the bag and placed it carefully on the black belt. I hoped it was not over the weight limit of 20 kilograms. The red numbers on the screen stopped at exactly 19. "That is a very perfect job of packing," Clara remarked. I felt proud because I spent all evening organizing my things. She attached a long white tag to the handle of my bag. The suitcase disappeared into a dark tunnel behind the counter. I felt much lighter without that big weight in my hand. Clara asked if I preferred a window seat or the aisle. I told her the window seat was my favorite for the view. She tapped the screen again to find the best spot for me. "Seat 12A is available, right over the wing of the plane," she said. I thanked her for finding such a great place to sit. She printed my boarding pass on a small piece of stiff paper. I tucked the pass into the front pocket of my jeans. Clara pointed toward the escalator leading to the upper floor. "Please follow the signs for security and passport control," she advised. I grabbed my small backpack and adjusted the shoulder straps. The smell of fresh coffee from a nearby cafe was very inviting. I decided to stay focused and finish all the formal steps first. I gave Clara a friendly wave before leaving the desk. She wished me a pleasant flight and a wonderful holiday. I felt like a real explorer starting a grand adventure. The journey was officially beginning, and I was ready for it. The line at the security checkpoint was longer than I expected. I stood behind a family with 3 very excited small children. A female officer guided everyone toward the gray plastic bins. I took off my jacket and placed it inside the first container. I remembered to remove my belt and my metal watch too. My blue eyes scanned the area to see what others were doing. I pulled my laptop out of my backpack and put it separately. "Make sure you have no liquids in your pockets," the officer said. I realized I still had a small bottle of juice in my hand. I drank it quickly and threw the empty bottle into the bin. I pushed my containers onto the moving rollers of the scanner. I walked through the metal detector with a little bit of nerves. There was no beep, which meant I was clear to go through. I waited on the other side for my belongings to appear. My backpack came out first, followed by my blue jacket. I put my belt back on and checked the time on my watch. Everything was still going according to my careful plan. I put my laptop back into its soft protective sleeve. A small dog was sniffing the bags nearby, looking very serious. I found a bench to put my sneakers back on comfortably. The airport was a busy hive of people and strange sounds. I felt a sense of relief to be through the hardest part. I walked toward the passport control booths made of dark wood. The officer looked at my face and then at my passport photo. He stamped the page with a satisfying clicking sound. "Welcome to the international zone, Tom," he said quietly. I entered the area full of shops and bright neon lights. It felt like a futuristic city inside a giant glass bubble. I saw a huge clock showing the time in different world capitals. Tokyo, London, and New York were all on the same wall. I looked at the signs for Gate B15, which was my destination. It was quite a long walk through the duty-free section. I walked past a store selling very expensive perfumes. The air smelled like roses and expensive leather bags. I saw a man playing a grand piano in the middle of the hall. The music was peaceful and made the terminal feel elegant. I kept my boarding pass in my hand just to be sure. My flight was still listed as on time on every screen. I felt very lucky to be traveling on such a beautiful day. My feet felt light on the soft carpet of the departure lounge. I finally arrived at Gate B15 and found a comfortable seat. The gate was located right in front of a giant glass window. I could see the airplanes parked on the concrete outside. They looked like giant silver birds waiting for the command. Fuel trucks and luggage carts were moving around the planes. I saw my plane being loaded with all the colorful suitcases. I wondered if my bag was already inside the dark cargo hold. I sat down and took a deep breath of the filtered air. My phone battery was a bit low, so I searched for a plug. I found a charging station built into the armrest of my chair. I plugged in my cable and watched the battery percentage grow. A young couple was sitting opposite me, looking at a map. They seemed as excited as I was about their coming trip. I took out a book to read while waiting for the boarding call. The story was about a man who lived on a tropical island. It made me dream of the white sand and the blue water. An announcement came over the speakers about a gate change. My heart stopped for a second until I heard a different number. Gate B17 will now host the flight to Paris, the voice said. My flight was still at B15, so I stayed exactly where I was. I noticed a small shop selling snacks and magazines nearby. I decided to buy a pack of mints for the long journey. The shopkeeper was very polite and wished me a safe trip. I checked the boarding time on my pass one more time. There were only 20 minutes left before the doors opened. People started to stand up and form a loose line near the desk. I decided to stay seated until they called my specific row. I watched a pilot walk past with his small rolling suitcase. He looked very confident and ready to fly the big machine. The ground crew started to gather near the jet bridge door. I put my book back into my backpack and zipped it shut. I made sure I didn't leave my charging cable in the seat. The sun was starting to set, turning the sky a soft orange. The reflection of the sunset was beautiful on the airplane wings. I felt a surge of pure joy to be in this moment. Clara appeared at the gate desk, looking fresh and ready. She was the same person who checked me in earlier this morning. It was nice to see a familiar face in such a busy place. She picked up the microphone to make the final announcement. My adventure was about to move from the land to the sky.
Write a comment. 3 best comments get 20 English lessons completely free.
We are now ready to board rows 20 to 30, Clara said. My row was number 12, so I had to wait a little longer. I watched the first group of passengers disappear into the tunnel. They looked happy and carried their small bags with ease. Finally, Clara called for all rows to begin the boarding process. I stood up and joined the line with my pass ready. I felt the excitement of the other travelers around me. Clara scanned my boarding pass with a quick red laser beam. "Enjoy your flight, Tom, and have a safe journey," she said. I thanked her and walked down the long, carpeted bridge. The air inside the tunnel was a bit warmer and smelled of metal. I reached the door of the plane and saw the flight attendants. They were standing at the entrance with very bright smiles. "Welcome on board. Your seat is on the left side," one said. I walked down the narrow aisle, looking at the seat numbers. I found row 12 and saw the empty seat by the window. I lifted my backpack and placed it in the overhead bin. I sat down and felt the soft fabric of the airplane chair. I fastened my seatbelt and heard a satisfying clicking sound. I looked out the window and saw the airport lights turning on. The view was amazing from this high perspective on the ground. I found the safety card in the pocket in front of me. I read the instructions carefully, even though I had flown before. The flight attendants started to close the heavy overhead bins. A mother and her daughter sat in the two seats next to me. They were very quiet and began to look at a colorful magazine. I checked the screen on the back of the seat in front of me. It showed a map of our flight path across the blue ocean. The captain's voice came over the intercom with a warm greeting. "We are preparing for departure. Please turn off your electronics." I switched my phone to airplane mode and put it in my pocket. The plane started to vibrate as the main engines came to life. I felt a slight push as we began to move slowly backward. The ground crew waved at us from the tarmac far below. We turned toward the runway and joined a line of other planes. I watched the wings flex slightly as we moved over the concrete. The lights inside the cabin were dimmed for the takeoff process. I felt a sense of wonder at how such a big thing could fly. My journey through the airport was finally over. I was ready to see the world from above the white clouds. The engines roared with a deep and very powerful sound. I felt the force pressing me back into my comfortable seat. We moved faster and faster until the ground became a blur. Suddenly, the bumping stopped and we were in the air. I watched the airport buildings get smaller and smaller below. The city lights looked like thousands of tiny diamonds on velvet. We climbed higher and higher into the dark evening sky. The plane turned slowly, giving me a view of the distant mountains. I saw the moon shining brightly above the horizon line. The fasten seatbelt sign turned off with a double beep. I leaned back and looked at the stars through the thick glass. The flight attendants began to move down the aisle with cart. They offered a choice of juice, water, or a hot cup of coffee. I chose an orange juice and a small bag of salty pretzels. Everything tasted better when flying 10 kilometers high. I opened my book again, but found it hard to concentrate. The beauty of the night sky was much more interesting to me. I watched the light of the wingtip flashing green in the dark. The cabin was quiet, with most people resting or watching movies. I felt very peaceful in this small, flying world of ours. I looked at the map on the screen to see our current position. We were flying over a large forest and a winding river. The time seemed to pass very quickly in the upper atmosphere. I thought about all the people who helped me reach this place. Clara at the desk, the security officer, and the luggage crew. Traveling is a giant team effort that we often forget about. I felt grateful for the chance to see new parts of our planet. The pilot told us we would reach our destination in 2 hours. I decided to close my eyes and take a short, refreshing nap. The hum of the engines was like a steady and calm song. I dreamed of the waves hitting the sand on the sunny beach. When I woke up, the sky was starting to show hints of purple. The flight attendant was collecting the empty cups and trash. I felt refreshed and ready for the next part of my trip. The plane began to descend slowly toward the island. I could see the lights of the tropical coast in the distance. The captain asked us to return to our seats and fastened belts. I checked that my backpack was still under the seat in front. The landing gear came down with a loud and solid thump. I prepared myself for the final touch on the ground. We touched the runway with a very gentle and smooth landing. The passengers started to clap their hands for the skilled pilot. I felt a big smile on my face as we slowed down on the path. The plane moved toward a small, colorful terminal building. I could see palm trees waving in the warm evening breeze. "Welcome to your vacation destination," the flight attendant said. I waited for my turn to stand up and reach for my bag. I grabbed my backpack from a bin and walked toward the door. The air outside was humid and smelled of tropical flowers. I walked down the stairs and felt the warm ground under my shoes. I followed the other passengers toward the baggage claim area. The terminal was much smaller and more relaxed than the first one. I saw a local band playing music near the entrance to welcome us. I waited by the moving belt for my big suitcase to appear. After 5 minutes, I saw my bag with a long white tag. I picked it up and checked that everything was still okay. My suitcase had survived the trip without a single scratch. I walked through the nothing to declare exit into the main hall. A driver was holding a sign with my name, Tom, room 302. I walked toward him and he gave me a very friendly greeting. He helped me with my bag and led me toward his car. The car was open and I could feel the night air on my face. I looked back at the airport lights and felt a deep satisfaction. The long process of checking in and waiting was worth this moment. We drove along the coast with the ocean on our right side. The moon was reflecting on the water, making it look like silver. I saw small houses with red roofs and many flowers. I arrived at the hotel and saw the entrance decorated with lights. The receptionist was waiting for me with a cold glass of juice. "Welcome home, Tom. We hope you have a perfect stay," he said. I took my key and went up to my room on the 3rd floor. I opened the balcony door and heard the sound of the waves. I sat on a chair and looked at the dark, beautiful horizon. My adventure was just starting, but the travel part was a success. I thought about Clara and the busy airport so far away. I felt lucky to be exactly where I was at this very second. I decided to leave my suitcase closed until the next morning. All I wanted was to listen to the ocean and watch the stars. I am Tom, and this was the story of my flight to paradise. Life is a beautiful journey, and I'm happy to be a traveler.